Okay, hi everyone. I hope you are well. And now we're going to discuss another topic, the first big step of planning process, which is demand planning. So this is our topic for this video. And to be even more specific, we will cover only process overview and other parts of demand planning process we will cover in other videos. So let's start um, with the process overview. And here I would like to mention two main links. Um, they are for global planning calendar. So let me explain what is it. The planning cycle in our company, as in many other companies, as far as I know, is counted in months. So the main and like the main time limit for planning cycle is 1 month, and like every month, the process of planning is repeating itself. You just adjust to this new like season, you consider your last months and so on, but every time you start all over again. So for this purpose, to explain how the process is organized throughout the months, we have first of all the KB, which is called Global Planning Calendar. So I will not like cover this whole KB. You can follow the link. You can check it yourself. Um, However, I can say that here we have like all steps of planning process described in like a brief way, because actually planning is extremely um, deep and um, difficult, sophisticated process. So we really can't cover the whole, like all the nuances of business process during our training. Also, would like to mention that I don't know this process really well, and probably you can tell that by the style of the recordings. So we were really provided with just training presentations for business, not even for IT. We didn't have any proper knowledge transfer session from BTS members, and we didn't have any specific training on IBP, which would be really appreciated. But unfortunately, we don't have it. We can only learn like from incidents or from like third-party sources if we have time for it. As for me, IBP seems an extremely interesting solution, extremely interesting platform to discover, and someday I would like to really have like profound understanding of how IBP works and how the planning process actually works step by step. But as for now, I can only provide a brief overview about how I see this process. So you can check this article by yourself proactively, but please don't be scared like you don't understand what's going on, and you might think like, how will I process incident tickets for a planning process if I don't know how planning is carried out? Well, really, planning is, for example, as business process, it is much more difficult and sophisticated than, for example, P2P, procure to pay, like I would say. Because in procure to pay, of course, there are a lot of nuances too, but we can say that more or less the process is clear even for us from GSD side, like more or less. But for planning, there are so many steps, so many different formulas, solutions, and so just a lot going on. So you just can check this offline, the global planning calendar. We have demand planning, again, supply, followed by factory planning, leaf planning as a standalone process, and between like all these processes, we have sales and operational planning review. So let's continue. What also do we have on our presentation? I've put a link to an actual monthly operational cycle, and I would like to show it to you how it looks like. It is an Excel file actually used by BTS team and planners to like have an example of what general steps should be conducted every month and when they should be conducted. So you see that it all starts with master data in SAP S4, as I already told in previous videos. And then we can say that there are like, for example, if we take the whole months as 3 equal parts, like 3 parts, 10 days each, right? So we can roughly say that first 10 days of the months are devoted to demand planning. From day 10 to day 20 of the months are devoted to supply planning, and day 20 to day like 30, 31 of the months are devoted to factory planning. But this model would be extremely rough because as I also mentioned, we have 300 of demand planners, for example, 300 of supply planners, and like 400 of factory planners. So you don't, please don't think that demand planners work only 10 days a month, then supply planners work 10 days a month, and then factory planners. So when the demand planning stage is gone, demand planners do not stop work actually. They just start monitoring the overall situation and preparing the master data and preparing all the data for the next months. So people are not do not stop working throughout the months. They just go like, in this shadow mode, I would say. So supply planners have some work to do in the beginning of the months for calculating the current stocks and providing this information to demand planners. Then demand planners also participate with supply consistency checks, even when supply planning has already started, and so on. So every time for every group of planners, there is something going on in the system. Um, it's just out of our expertise, so we don't know all the nuances, but still. Well, again, don't want to don't want now to focus on all the steps because it might confuse you even more. So just leaving these links here for you to be available once I share the presentation, of course, because I am also finishing this training like on the go. So the PowerPoint presentation will be available a little bit later. Sorry, guys. Yeah, so we're moving to the process overview in a more like simple way. So again, demand planning is done by markets, And by markets, we mean entities or company codes. So generally, markets are countries. You can say it to simplify. So demand planning is carried out in IBP, and markets need to check the current sales statistics, so sales data for the previous months. Then they need to analyze the trends and seasonality, which gives general sales plan for the market. So after they do this analyze of past sales data, they need to apply the automatic formulas of statistical forecasting in IBP to create a forecast for the upcoming month. And then they run this automatic algorithm called heuristics. So there are heuristics on production planning stage, on supply planning stage, and on demand planning stage as well. So once demand planners run heuristics, this automatic algorithm, the forecast is automatically calculated for upcoming months for specific products. So let's leave it like that for now. Then once we have forecast about, like, for example, we have Winston Blue. That's our product. We know how much of Winston Blue we sold last month. System creates like automatic forecast for the next month according to some formulas in the system. And we get some information that next month we need to, like, for this country, we need to provide like this amount of Winston Blue to our customers, because they will probably be ready to buy it, and we don't have overproduction or underproduction. Okay, now when we have these values, we have the input for supply planning. When there is a disaggregation, well, we will talk about disaggregation a little bit later. Again, well, that's a phrase I really repeat a lot throughout this training, because so many unknown terms, and like without explaining them, I cannot even do any overview. And when I will just explain them without any overview, then they make no sense as well. So for me, that's really a hard a hard task to achieve, I guess. So in 2 words, disaggregation is breaking down the demand for a product to particular SKUs, so to particular SAP materials. The main idea is that one product, for example, Winston Blue, can be presented by at least several SAP materials, because we can have slightly different ingredients, we can have slightly different manufacturing process, slightly different machines or equipment can be involved into the manufacturing process, but in the end, we get more or less the same product, which is sold to our customers as Winston Blue. Well, with some, like, maybe there are some different types of Winston Blue, but I take it as like Winston Blue is our end product, and it can be achieved by slightly different means, right? In different countries, in different markets. So that's what disaggregation is. We are like, we say that, okay, 50% of Winston Blue will be produced this way, 40% will be produced that way, and 10% will be produced from these ingredients. That's how it is. So this is the input data for supply planning. Then supply planners, they take this forecast, disaggregated forecast coming from demand planning, and they take it as a prerequisite. Then they need to consider the warehouse, which means how much capacity do we have in our warehouses? Will we be able to store the required amount of finished goods in our warehouses? How much space do we have? And how much of already produced goods we have left on stock, which is very important. Then they also need to consider rough cut capacity planning goes for resources. So for our machines, for our factory equipment, we need to check how much capacity do we have? Are we able to like load our machines 100%, or some of them are waiting for maintenance, or we are waiting to increase our capacities by buying more machines and so on. So this should be considered, of course. And then after we have the final review from business, we can provide this information already disaggregated, already considered with warehouses and capacities. We can provide this information to particular factories. So one market can have several factories, or only one factory, or 0 factories. So markets can be only for like selling production. Then on this market, we have only warehouses and no factories at all. This is also an option. But if we consider that we have several factories in one market, so supply planning distributes the production requirement or purchasing requirements to factories, every particular one, and we do the specified production planning. So that's an overview. Well, I even didn't read those notes below. Let me check. Factory capacity, right, adjusting the plans. Yeah, so factories, yeah, totally right. Factories plan purchasing or manufacturing of semi-finished goods. So we can buy some components we don't produce by ourselves, and factories, they produce usually semi-finished goods first, like cigarettes, which are then packed to like small packs, which is also a semi-finished good. But then packs are assembled to a case with like branding, with all labels, with the wrapping, and so on. And this is called SKU, store keeping unit, because we can sell this to our customers. You can't sell the one pack of cigarettes. You need to sell it in blocks, in cases, in pallets. So these big cases, blocks, are our SKUs usually. So guess we're done with the overview. Yeah, again, so almost the same information, just with more infographics. So we do forecasting, looking at this magic glass sphere. Then we check our inventory, we check our capacity, we review all the requirements, do the factory detailed scheduling for each machine. We consider what non-tobacco materials, well, NTMs. NTM is the material category, which stands for non-tobacco materials. So these are filters, packs, labels, cartons, and so on. So every part of production which is not produced by JTI itself. And we obviously need raw, like green leaf, raw tobacco, which should be dried, roasted, mixed with sauces to uh, finally become a cigarette, for example. So again, if we consider the demand process, like only demand, I guess this is a really good picture which can show us the main steps. So first of all, we need to maintain our portfolio of products in Portfolio Cockpit, which is done by demand planners at the beginning of the cycle. As we checked in just a moment. Yeah, as we checked in monthly operational cycle steps, first of all, we need to have master data validation, and this should be done in S4 SAP. Once it is done in S4 SAP, the information is synchronized with IBP, and planners can enter Portfolio Cockpit and maintain the data here. Then from Portfolio Cockpit, which is a separate BW platform, the information goes to IBP, to demand module, where we should also consider the sales history. Then we need to analyze the data and correct the outliers, as I already mentioned in one of the previous videos. Then we need to run the automatic algorithms and come up with a forecast for upcoming months. And finally, we have so-called consensus demand. So it is a demand for the market for not SKUs, but for products. So only by product level or planning unit level. And when the information is uploaded to supply module, it goes through the process of SKU disaggregation, which we just discussed briefly. So again, this slide represents the planning calendar. So you see, for example, April 2021, on the third work day, we start to collect the actuals data. So actuals, it means the statistics from the past months on how much we sold. Then we collect this actuals data, and on the sixth working day, we already need to come up with consensus demand disaggregated. So this basically, you see this purple days are purple days. Okay, so these purple days are occupied by demand process. Then the light blue days go for supply, then factory, and then leaf. So even the same colors as they are in this monthly operational cycle. All right. Yeah, so that's how it works. Also, you might be curious, like how planners manage their tasks, how they distribute tasks between each other, and work, like how do they communicate? Well, actually, of course, they communicate in teams. Also, I will now show you just a second. There is global planning community, which is quite big. Just let me show it to you real quick. So here you can see there is a Teams channel called Global Planning Community. And here, planners, you see we have sub-channels for demand planning, for DC planning, which is probably supply. Yes, I am pretty sure it is supply. Then we have rough cut capacity and PPDS included, so basically factory part. Then we have sales and operations planning. It is this review of demands by business, financial cycle, and so on. So also we have several channels for leave, out of cycle changes, and governance. So for example, if we go to demand planning subchannel, we can see that there are regular posts, like almost, no, well, not every day, but at least every several days, there is some post, like demands were pushed from IBP to S4, then the start of the April cycle is open for demand planning. So obviously, some real piece of communication is going on in the Teams channel. By the way, if some global issue occurs, for example, IBP is down and is not working, most probably this information will be also shared for all planners here in the global planning community. So when IBP production was down, it was like 2 or 3 times since go live. We received almost no incidents for it because all planners were already informed and spread the information like in Teams or like somewhere inside. So we have Teams, but Teams is like it is not the whole communication for planners. So up till now, they are using Microsoft Projects for Web, which is basically task planner that you probably use, especially if you are working in St. Petersburg hub and you are a point of contact or you have some non-operational task. I guess you probably use the Microsoft Planner. But would like to mention that Microsoft Planner for planners will be soon replaced by another tool called Planning Cycle Cockpit, which will be held on the platform of MyJTI. So not exactly on MyJTI portal, but it will be a separate link, but on the base of MyJTI. And the go live is going to happen in May, or no, not in May, sorry. I guess it's going to happen in June. So probably starting from June 2022, planners will be managing their tasks there, and GSD will probably support this tool. So more information is coming. But apart from the communicators, what are the main tools that planners use? These are obviously IBP web user interface. It is usually used for forecasting and analytics, but we don't really receive incidents about it. Well, it's very rare when we receive any incidents for this part of process. Usually we receive incidents for the second tool, SAP IBP add-in, because most of the time and most of the planners, demand planners, they work in the add-in. Here they review, compare, and update key figures, and also run statistical forecasting. And also a small add-in created by JTI is Archon Supply. It is used to select quantity values for this actual sales statistics, and it just removes and corrects the outlier figures. So the unusual peaks and drop downs, like not drop downs, but like plunges. Well, these are the tools. And then I would like to comment once more on the topic of planning unit. So I was mentioning it before, but here we have a good picture, like what is actually a planning unit. So planning unit is a set of attributes like family, brand, cigarette lengths, units for pack, and PMC, but I don't really know what is PMC, sorry. And all these attributes combined um, make a specific product like LD standard, blah, 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 camel filter, and so on. So every specific product which we sell is maintained in a system as a planning unit. And demand planners, first of all, need to maintain all them in portfolio cockpit. So then on the next slide, we can check how the disaggregation process is carried out, what it actually is. So I guess this picture is the most representative for the process. So we have like planning unit, Winston Blue, and we know that like for the next 12 months, we need to constantly produce Winston Blue. So for example, for the first 4 months, we can produce it using the SKU number 1. For the second 4 months, we can produce it using SKU number 2 and then SKU number 3. So you see what is disaggregation is breaking down the requirement for a product into separate SKUs. Well, also, let me check disaggregation logic. So yes, market, they should maintain the validity of every product, like from which months to what months it is valid, because after validity is expired, the product gets outdated. We cannot sell the very same product for, years and decades. We need to change it from time to time, and components change and so on. So it is not um, it's not a constant. Then we need to maintain the proportions. So in which proportions we will break down the requirement for the product into like 40% of this SKU, 10% of this SKU, and all other goes for another one, for example. And we need to consider the stock on hand. Of course, we need to know how much of this product was already produced. Also, this picture mentions write-off report. So what is write-off is when, for example, a product reached its shelf life date. So unfortunately, we hit some overproduction, or we had a drastic decrease in demand by our customers, and we have some product which cannot be sold anymore. So we need to utilize it, and that's what is called write-off when we utilize some product. And we also need to consider that like how many products goes to the write-off. Well, I cannot say how exactly this is done, of course, because I am not a demand planner. I am just explaining the terms. So when you see this word write-off in the incident, you can have at least like abstract, I don't know, understanding of what does it mean. But basically, the planning process from the IT side, I don't know, from technical side, it looks, well, maybe mysterious, but quite similar, I would say. So planners, they choose template, they choose filters, the time limits, the key figures, the planning units, and they basically see some table with values. Well, everything leads to Excel table, right? Uh, whether it SAP or IBP or any other database, any other business process, it all ends with Excel table with tabs and rows and columns. So they maintain the data and update it, save it in the system, so it can be transferred to another template. And this step-by-step process with various templates. So basically information, it goes like from template number 10 to like final supply templates, just through all of them, I would say. And here is also the slide with process steps, one by one. So as I said, first planners need to maintain portfolio, maintain validity dates, send it to IBP, synchronize the data, validate it in IBP, like a double check that everything is correct in IBP. Then they need to maintain disaggregation settings, like the proportions, consider write-offs, and so on. And this happens on the first working day of the month. So all these steps are carried out prior to that, in the end of, or like throughout the previous months. So when demand planners finish their part on the like 6 working day of the month, for like whole other months till the end, they just maintain the data, validity, checking the portfolio, and so on. Well, I believe so. Then after disaggregation settings are maintained, they run the optimizer, which is like automatic script in IBP. Then they need to review the sales history, put it through some algorithms to create a forecast for upcoming months, then adjust it manually and reach some consensus, confirm it like between different teams, I don't know. Adjust it, and it is an input to supply planning. Then they just monitor how accurate the forecast was. So that's it. Well, I showed it to you in the previous videos that we have access, GSD has access to Portfolio Cockpit. However, for us, it is empty because we don't have access to any particular market. So for us, Portfolio Cockpit is completely useless. But demand planners, they usually have access to their own market, or maybe a couple of markets, well, which they responsible for, like Americas. So they have this tree. Then they need to choose a particular market. And then when they click the maintain button, they receive the list with all the products maintained in the system. Well, the information, it comes from SAP, of course, but from BW part of SAP, because Portfolio Cockpit is connected with BWP, not with P40, right? And again, they see the whole set of products for a specific market with the validity dates. And they see the names of planning units as well. So let me check what I want to show you to prove my point. Just a moment. Okay, so you see, for example, this line, whereas the cursor right now, the force from the top, you see the planning unit is SKR, AEX, F1, so on, A81, right? So for this planning unit, we have this SKU ending with 76. But if we look through this list, we can see the exact same planning unit. So the code is exactly the same, but the SKU is different. So that's how it works. One planning unit can be like achieved by several or even many SKUs. So they see this list, then they need to um, oh god, I wanted to finish this video with an overview, but I started the process steps. Okay, I will finish this step and we'll end the video to start another one. Okay, so once they check the whole portfolio, they click assign products, and well, assigning the products, it means like enabling it. So for example, you have a big variety of products, but some of them are already outdated, or they're just not produced like this year, for example. And you don't assign these products, you just keep them in the portfolio, let them be, but they are not used in the real planning process. So when they assign all the required products, they click save, and then they need to maintain the validity dates in the system. Then they again click save, and they transfer it to ABP. So that's pretty much it. Actually, at least after the go live, we received quite a lot of incidents for Portfolio Cockpit when people like they don't have access, first of all, then they don't see their markets, they don't see some materials. You need to check them in SAP, first of all. I will discuss it later. So you need to check if material in SAP is enabled for planning. Otherwise, you won't see it like anywhere. You won't see it in ABP, and probably you won't see it in Portfolio Cockpit. Yes, and sometimes they had issues with assignment and unassignment, and usually, like, this is really intuitive, and several times I was able to help people via remote sessions, even though I am not really familiar with the process, but it actually is not so hard. I guess as for now, such incidents are rather rare because people are already used to the system. They use ABP and Portfolio Cockpit for a year already, and they don't have this like simple questions, I guess, a lot. So that's it. Well, moving to the IBP part in the next video. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.